Believe it or not, I've been wanting to make this video since last year, but I've always been sidetracked and at some point I just completely forgot about it. And judging by the layout, you might have guessed that I've had this footage for a little while now. Regardless, I'm finally going to talk about Brock because in all honesty, he's my favorite marksman. Well, to be fair, the only other marksman I ever used was Piper, and I'm not really good with her. But in this video, I'm not just going to talk about why he's my favorite marksman brawler, but also which game mode he excels at. So for my loadout, I'm going to be using rocket laces for my gadget. My first gear is going to be shield, my second is reload speed, and last but definitely not least, my star power is going to be rocket number 4. And with that said, let's first start off with a couple of rounds of solo showdown. So, although I said that Brock is my favorite marksman, I'd be lying if I said that I was ever a master at using him. Because as you can see, I tend to auto aim a lot, which forced me to use my gadget. Now I know most players would say that you should never auto aim, especially for these kinds of brawlers, but I think Brock can be an exception because his attack doesn't have to be pinpoint, and as long as you're hitting relatively close, you're still going to be doing damage. I personally try not to auto aim as much, but there are certain times where it can be useful, especially for map designs that you can take advantage of. Now apart from that, the big thing that Brock has to offer is his Rocket Laces gadget, mainly for this reason. Honestly, even if Brock didn't have this gadget, I would still use him, but I wouldn't call him the best marksman. But just being able to escape situations like that just by using this gadget is incredible. And considering that gadgets now have infinite use, I could see this being better than before. In my opinion, I think Brock is a really solid choice for solo showdown, or even duo for that matter. You know, players nowadays tend to use brawlers that can jump you in a matter of seconds, and you need to find a way to either defend yourself or escape. And I think Brock does both really well, especially for a marksman brawler whose main purpose is to do as much damage as possible to both brawlers and the terrain. So now we'll be moving on to, in my opinion, the best game mode you can use Brock on, which is none other than Knockout. So I actually considered using Brock on Bounty instead of all game modes, but then I figured that hey, I actually might do better on Knockout instead, and gee willikers, was I right. I mean, granted we did lose the first match, but we quickly kicked their ass in the second and the third one. In all seriousness, what makes Brock such a beast on Knockout is the maps just being straightforward. Like, you know where they're going to come from, and therefore you can attack every single bush you see in order to lure them out. Now you could say this is basically the same thing for Bounty, but I prefer Knockout because the matches can be relatively quicker. Now going back to Brock, I know that I haven't really talked about his super or even his hypercharge, but I think they're relatively easy to understand. I think his super is fine for the most part. I mean, it can be really difficult to actually hit a brawler that just moves away or even disappears, but it's definitely not impossible to kill a brawler this way. It's just a matter of prediction, which is something you're going to be doing a lot. And as long as you have a good team, you won't be losing anytime soon. So after all these years, I think Brock is honestly much better than before. And I'm not just saying in terms of his loadout, but also his ability to adapt. While he does remain good on Showdown, I think he is much better on Knockout. But to be fair, I decided not to use him in other modes because I figured he wouldn't be all that special. Like, let's be real, when's the last time you've seen someone use him on Brawl Ball? I'm not saying that he wouldn't be good, but it's just something you don't think about. But anyways, have a good day.